Welcome to episode 71 of the Slip and Weed podcast. My guest this week, Coach George Torres of Mill City Boxing. Coach, thanks for coming on today, brother.
Absolutely, man. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, bro. Just do me a favor, introduce yourself to the people, let everybody know about you and your boxing career and all that.
All right, sounds good. So I'm Coach Torres. I'm from Lowell, Massachusetts. Nickname is Mill City. That's why I got the name Mill City Boxing. I started my business ventures with cutting hair, dipped into the promotional thing, and now I'm a boxing coach. 2007, I entered in the Golden Gloves. I've done over 12 smokers among Massachusetts and New Jersey. And I'm a boxing content creator as well. I like to do interviews. That sums it up.
Well, beautiful. Yeah. And I'll coming from me right now. You know what I'm saying? If you guys want to see some interviews with some of the best in the sport, check out Mill City Boxing. Coach Torres doing some high quality shit. Coach, let's just get right into Vergil Ortiz and Michael Mckinson. How did you feel about Vergil Ortiz's performance and where he's at right now?
Well, I would have to agree on Terrence Crawford on some of the stuff he was talking about. I think that Vergil Ortiz was definitely trying way too hard. Just trying to throw a lot of shots, throw hard shots. I mean, not really poised. Could have definitely got, I believe he could have got the stoppage a lot earlier.
It felt like McKinson was a pretty tricky opponent. You know what I'm saying? Like he had some decent boxing skills and he knew how to keep his distance, keep the fight a little bit more low impact. But I think you're right. I think a lot of times Vergil is kind of forcing his offense and he's trying to, like, everything is a 10. Everything is as hard as it can be. You know what I'm saying? And I would just love to see him kind of settle down and set his shots up just a little bit more, you know?
Yeah, once he steps up with the level of competition, that stuff's not going to work. Even with Rashidi Ellis, I mean, it's not going to work. Boots is not going to work, and we can't even talk about this.
Yeah, with guys like that, it's like the harder you try, it's going to only help them. You know what I'm saying? Because they're looking for that.
Absolutely. And you're giving them, you letting them know where the tank lies as well. I think McKinson, when he first, I don't know about you, what do you think? The first round, do you think he was like kind of like tired, a little winded?
Vergil?
No, McKinson.
I think McKinson was a little nervous, to be honest with you. I think it was like, I think he actually adjusted and then got into the fight a little bit. But I think as a whole, there was parts of the fight where he just was like a little overwhelmed with the pressure, which is also, it's like, that's why I feel like Vergil could just kind of settle down and take his time a little more. And so I know we've talked about this a little bit off air, but I feel like the weight has to contribute to that. I feel like it's taking away some of his natural explosiveness. Do you see any of that?
Absolutely. And I think they both were nervous, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? It's been a little layoff for Vergil, and the guy wasn't a big puncher, better mover, southpaw. I understand what you said. It's tricky. Besides that, I mean, not the greatest performance, I would have to say.
But I think it's a tough style to fight off of a layoff, too. That's really the main thing, is if you haven't fought in a bit and you got to go look for that guy, he is a little tricky.
Yeah, they put him in with a tricky guy. They put him in with a tricky guy that didn't have a big punch. So I think that's what, Vergil's high guard, somebody with not a big punch is not going to really disturb that guard too much. So, yeah.
So where do you see him right now in the welterweight landscape? Do you think he's a guy that's ready for big fights now, or do you still see him as like a prospect in development?
Development. Absolutely. I mean, I can't put him in the top 5 right now.
I've been on the fence about that, where there's been fights where I've seen him and I think kid's ready. You know what I'm saying? The kid's ready. But something like this where I just see him still trying to force it so hard against a guy that he's clearly better than, I just see some things they need to work on, and that's fine because he's like 23, you know.
Right.
The other thing I was thinking about Vergil too is, and again, I think this one's pretty obvious, but it seems like the big fight of this generation, of this new generation, at some point is Vergil Ortiz and Jaron Ennis. Do you see that as a big fight down the road? Or do you think the writing is on the wall with that one a little bit? Like Jaron is already the guy.
To be honest, Jaron hasn't really proven himself yet. He hasn't had a dance partner to really be able to bring the best capabilities that he has. Yeah, really, I think that they're kind of, I don't want to say they're equal. I think Ennis got him up by like, a little bit, more tools, more aspects to the game, more dynamic, but it's still a good fight. I mean, if Vergil has a nice chin if he can show that he has a great chin, he's gotten wobbled a couple times, but he's still a young kid. I think they're really trying to push him at 47 to at least be able to come up with some type of belt. At 54, he's going to have to box.
It feels like at 54, Vergil, I just maybe I'm seeing something that isn't there, but I see him as potentially like a very explosive fighter. And just looking at his body and how he's moving, it feels like to me that weight cut is taking something out of him that we're not able to see at 47. And then on some level, I feel like that may be affecting his punch resistance as well, where when you have to cut that kind of weight, your chin can be a little more suspect.
I think you're on the money with that. I mean, he's probably punching a lot less harder just because he's trying to make the weight. So I could agree.
It just feels like I know that look when you're watching a guy and you're watching how he moves. You know what I'm saying? And it just looks like everything is an effort. I feel like that's what we're seeing. And he's just so talented that somebody like McKinson can't necessarily do anything about it. You know what I'm saying? But does that get exposed against more talented welterweights? Whereas if you put him and Tim Tszyu in right now, or him and another guy at 54, like I see him as a 50-50 in those fights for the most part. I just think that he's going to fill out and his style kind of suits that weight anyway. You know what I mean? What do you think about Vergil Ortiz potentially moving up to 154?
It just needs to be done, you know? It just needs to be done. It's tough, man, to groom a fighter and you want to get these accolades at a certain division and you just don't accomplish that. Sometimes you just got to just move up, and hope for the best.
And I think the other part of it too, man, and we've talked about this, it's just until Crawford and Spence happens, what are we doing at welterweight? What's the grand prize? There's nothing really to aspire to right now.
Kind of sucks in a way because it's like, when it comes to Canelo, everybody got to wait. With these two guys, everybody got to wait. And it's boxing, right?
And it has like a butterfly effect, bro. It feels like when you have big fights like this that don't get made, it like radiates out into the rest of the sport where there's just it's like a blood clot or something. You know what I mean? Like if we can't figure out who the best is at a weight, and at this point with Bud and Spence, we're 4 years right into waiting for this fight. It's like the same as Mayweather Pacquiao, and at a certain point, like you're just holding up the division.
Absolutely, I would have to agree. Now, is Jaron Ennis, is he signed to PBC?
I think he is. Basically all of his fights have been on PBC. It would seem like he would have access to all of these guys. But what's in it for Boots if Spence and Crawford haven't fought each other? Is it a fight with Keith Thurman? I don't know. I think Keith is still in the mix for a big fight. What do you think about Jaron Ennis and Keith Thurman?
Great fight. I mean, what can I say about that? The fans win. The fans win on that for sure.
I think it's a great fight, and I think even if we're not getting Bud and Spence like right now in the immediate, I'd like to still see some of these welterweight contenders get in and fight each other.
Right.
You know, there is less options with Danny.
Hold on, these guys are moving up. These guys are moving up. Let's be honest. We could see it. We could smell it.
And it's tough because the welterweight division just has like a history. It has like a glamour to it. Um, but it
After the heavyweight division, it's the best division.
but
Been
it
it's always
it's
been.
in a lull. It's in a lull.
It's tough, right? Because you got like these young contenders at 35, starting at 30 and 35, and they like a year, 2 or 3, you know, they're jumping right into 40. It's it's, it's the story, you know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what's next for Vergil Ortiz. Speaking of some other welterweights, Blair Cobb, kind of an upset, getting a win over Maurice Hooker. What did you think of this fight? There was some ugly moments in this fight, but what did you think about Blair Cobb's performance?
So so you saying that was an upset?
Kind of. I mean, they said that Hooker was a 3-1, 3-1 favorite.
Yeah, I don't really agree too much on that. I know that Cobbs came through that suffered that KO against Alex. But to be honest, I was actually having Blair winning that fight.
And I get why now that it's played out, you know what I'm saying? But when it came on, I just felt like Booker had the height, or a Hooker, I should say, had the height and the nice long jab. I just thought he had some like nice basic skills that could kind of tame some of the crazier, you know, jumping in shit that Cobbs did. But it seemed like that really threw him off. And one of my first observations was I don't think Hooker was in the best shape that he's ever been in. What did you think about Hooker's conditioning in this fight?
Yeah, absolutely. Right from the weigh-ins, bro. He wasn't even really cut. Yeah, you could see right away that you could tell that Hooker's not going to give you the best Hooker right off the weigh-ins alone. His jab looked slow. He looked a little off that night. Not, you know, he definitely did.
It just felt like he was just waiting. Like it felt like he was, particularly after he got knocked down, what, 4 times, 3 times. It seemed like he was putting on the nice foot pressure, right? And then he would get in position and it just wouldn't flow.
Absolutely. And like it seemed like a little surprise to Blair that, you know, he dropped him. Like right away from the beginning. You seen the first knockdown, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you could see everybody was like, all right, is Blair gonna go? Is he gonna push the gas? He was patient, very patient. I mean, I don't think Blair's a crazy threat in the division. He's just a name in the division.
I will say he does a couple of things better than I thought he did. Like he does have a little bit of timing that's actually pretty effective. I didn't think his timing was as good as it was because he landed some weird shit on Hooker, but he's just got that chin up in the air, bro. Like he's giving you that bullseye, you know?
When he wants to throw hooks, he's very wide. You could tell like the fundamentals kind of go to shit a little bit when he wants to really throw hard because I've seen him train and he looks sharp right down the middle. But in a fight, completely different, you know. So I don't know. I mean, these are that's a big fight for both of these guys coming off 2 losses, you know. So
I personally just I was surprised that Hooker at no point had like an adjustment or a plan B or something else that he could go to that could kind of tame some of the wilder shit that Cobbs has. But I think that's maybe what is like the thing that makes Cobb special, right? If you're not elite, all of that weird herky jerky shit he does kind of works.
my opinion on Maurice Hooker is he's gone through some wars already. And it's kind of you can see that it's affecting him a little. For sure. Even the way he talks.
You can absolutely hear it in the way he talks. Um, unfortunately, and you could see Crawford even saying, I don't think he's in it mentally tonight. I don't think he's all there. And I don't know. You hate to see somebody that young. Like, I hate saying to somebody that young it might be time, but just watching him, man, it looked like a struggle.
I agree.
It right? I mean, it just seemed like if it and the other thing I was going to point out, I wanted to get your thoughts on. They made a joke at the beginning of the fight, like he was telling all the commentators, "I'm heavy tonight. I'm heavy." So when a guy's saying that, it's like they didn't cut it the right way. They came into camp 175 and had to lose like 30 pounds in a month. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's when in boxing do you hear someone not ready? We have to sell the fight, right? So we're not gonna hear that you're not ready. So we could just leave that one at that.
It sucks because I know for a fact that they said, I don't remember who it was, but somebody important to him in his life had passed away recently. Um, and I'm sure there's other factors that are played into that performance that we don't even know about. But it was just weird to see somebody that talented have such a difficult time with an opponent like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's Blair. Blair is a good fighter. He is a good fighter. I like the way he fights. I think he probably sells the fight better than he fights.
He's got some of that Keith Thurman thing though, right? Where he knows how to talk it up. He knows how to get you excited.
I can see why you get the similarities for sure. I mean, we all know Blair is a one of a kind guy, though.
It's like a wrestling persona. They both have that wrestling persona.
That's right.
But I always thought it was funny that he was like the idea of him fighting Spence or Ennis. I mean, I don't think that's practical, but I do think he's a fun fighter and a fun opponent potentially for another big name at welterweight.
Absolutely. A potential Alex Rocha rematch.
Why not? Right? I mean, this was an exciting enough win. He got the 3-4 knockdowns. It was like relatively dominant. The first fight with Rocha was fun, and I'm sure the winner of that rematch would move on to something bigger. How you
Correct.
how you think that will play out?
Whew, man. So I noticed Blair, when it comes down to the heat, he does not want to get burnt. That is one thing that he loves to stay in the outside and come in and out, pivot, in and out, pivot. So you can't do that with Rocha. Rocha's not gonna let you do that.
Yeah, you have to be, and if you do, I feel like you have to have some tighter skills. You know what I'm saying? Than what Cobbs is bringing to the table. It just feels like Rocha has such a nice standard style that all that jumping in that Cobbs tries to do. It's just he's not going to be able to get away with it at a certain level.
The only thing about Rocha, he's younger, and Cobbs is in his 30s, so that could play a factor of a rematch not happening. But then again, we got a guy that could sell a fight, so it depends on his next couple performances. He has to earn that spot for sure.
I agree he's got to earn it, but I think he looked better in this fight than he did against Rocha for sure. Next weekend, we have the return of Teofimo Lopez, finally. Um,
The takeover.
the takeover. I don't know anything about the opponent. I don't know if that's the point. I think people are just excited to see Teofimo. What are you looking for in Teofimo this weekend?
Um, I think that he needs to make a statement, but I heard that this guy's a live dog.
I haven't gotten to watch him, unfortunately, and I haven't found any footage of him. But I feel like they're going to want to put him in with somebody who can at least give some kind of resistance just so they can see, you know what I mean, what they're still working with. Um, you know,
You see how they didn't want to put him with Barbosa, huh?
bro, I mean, Barbosa's a bad boy, dude. That dude has it all to me. I mean, he's a 360 fighter. You know what I'm saying? How would you see
Absolutely.
that matchup playing out?
I don't want to talk because Tio's my friend, and I want to be able to just say, yo, like he's gonna do great. I think he should be able to get the job done. But with Barbosa, It's a tough fight, man. Those guys, he's proven already.
And it seems like of all of the top guys at 140, that Barbosa is the guy that's talked about the least, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like he's not getting that the accolades and the attention that a Ryan Garcia is getting.
Yeah.
He's not getting the big fights that Josh Taylor is getting. But every time you see Barbosa, he shows you some layers. You know what I'm saying?
It's a bad man. It just when it comes down, how old is this guy?
Barbosa, I want to say he's probably 30.
Yeah, so these guys in the 30s, if they don't have a big popularity standpoint, they're really not going to get the recognition with the promotional teams for sure. You want to build something young, you know. So that's why if you ever we see any 30-year-olds guys that they have undefeated records and you just can't, they're not nobody to play with. They come in to win for sure.
And I just think Barbosa, he's had the tough fights already where like it's time for him to get a big fight. But until that big fight happens, it's just like, what do you do with him? You just keep him busy against decent opponents, I guess.
Yeah, because the next thing you know, a Cambosis comes in hand.
So speaking of Cambosis, obviously, bro, this is the first time we're seeing Teofimo since that fight. And he's moving up a weight class. He's moving up to 140. He doesn't have to do that cut anymore. Hopefully, the lung condition that he was dealing with is good to go, and he's not dealing with any of that. What kind of style are you looking for from Teofimo? You looking to see him super aggressive like he was against Cambosis, or the more kind of like jabbing, patient Teofimo?
Patient Teofimo, smarter Teofimo. He's been getting grief this whole time about not being that guy, not being able to stay composed to get the guy out of here. Everybody said that he fought an emotion. That gotta get to you, you know. So boxing gotta come into play, and the kid can box.
And he obviously showed that against Loma, regardless of how you scored the fight. I mean, he showed that he's got one of the best jabs around. Obviously, I think his hand speed is not in question. His power is not in question. But I think what's in question might be like his durability or his ability to stay focused for 12 rounds. Do you see any of that as like legitimate criticism, or you think he just had a rough night against Cambosis?
Yeah, if all those things that came in play about his lungs, he shouldn't have been in the ring that day. If that was what it was, okay. He still was swinging hard. He still was doing things that he can do. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I just hope he comes with a good game plan and he just executes with a great performance. I mean, I don't really have anything else to say with that fight. Not knowing the opponent as much.
Yeah, it's tough to know what to expect. I think ultimately everyone's just hoping that Tiafimo looks like himself, man. He looks like the guy we saw dominate Richard Comey. He looks like the guy from the first 7 rounds against Loma. Um,
Speaking against Richard Comey, did you see that knockout he had with the little dance at the end?
it's fucking great, dude. I was like, this is the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a live dog.
Where do you see him in the 140 landscape?
Oh, he's there.
You think? You think he's
Yeah,
got a chance against the guys like Ramirez and Taylor and Zapata and all these guys?
he does. He's a beautiful boxer. He hits hard. I want to see that power at 40. I heard it's a big difference from 35 to 40. So I want to see how that plays out. Um, and then after that, we could talk more about Tio and what he is all about in 140.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of 140, recently announced Josh Taylor rematching Jack Caddarol. It seems like November 26th of this year. What do you think about this matchup? Do you think Josh Taylor should be fighting at 140 still? Should he have moved up? You think Caddarol's just got his number? How you feeling about this one?
Yo, when you seen that he won the first fight and you seen that we had talks with Crawford, you kind of got to think that he can't make the weight a little bit. He's like 5'10" at 140. And this guy really, really, really gets thinned out. He amazes me of how much dog he has, um, being at that size and that height. Um, Rematch, I'm looking at a better Josh Taylor. I don't think he had a good night.
I don't think he had a good night either. I think Caddarol had a great night, and Taylor didn't have his best performance, and yet he was still able to make it like a relatively close fight. I think most people, including me, thought Caddarol won. Um, but I thought Taylor won some rounds. I thought he out hustled him in some of the rounds, and but
But he lost the fight for sure.
he lost the fight. There's no doubt about it. It was a bad decision. But I think I had it like a 2 or a 3 point fight where, I thought Taylor came on at the end. And I think if he was able to maintain the pressure a little bit more, that he'd be able to give Caddarol a tough fight.
You know what I think he really needs, man? I really think that he needs that Charlo, like how Charlo rematched Castaño and knocked him out. I really think he needs something like that right now, just to
That's a
rise.
perfect, that's a perfect example. He just, because I really think he is actually like an all timer at 140. And I think that if he was able to like really beat this guy convincingly, even if he had lost that decision, it's almost like I just feel like he's potentially an all time great at 140.
Oh yeah, he's already proven himself already. Let's just
And
be honest.
how many undisputed champions has there ever been? Like seven?
Right. But then it's about like, how did you get it? And like Ramirez, Regis Progred, those are great names, man, on the resume. Awesome names.
He's really like actually one of the few guys in boxing that's fought almost all of the other top guys at his weight. There's not a lot of other guys you can actually say that about.
And journeyman.
It's really like him and Canelo in a lot of ways. Like those are the guys that have just like fought basically every tough guy they could get.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like I had some, I like the way how Terrence Crawford thinks, so when listening to him talk about these other fighters and how he talked about Josh Taylor, I mean, he called both of those fights too. He called the Regis fight and he called the Ramirez fight too. He's like Josh Taylor by skills, period. So he could box and he's tough.
The toughness, I think, is that X factor, bro. People don't realize like when it's time for the dog to come out, he's got just as much as any of them.
Yeah, that's what made like Manny Pacquiao so fire. His dynamics, but people forget like this guy takes some shots.
Yeah, yeah,
And he's not moving backwards.
and he's not moving. Taylor's, very much. I mean, he can box on the outside, but he's like tall pressure. You know what I mean? And tall pressure is a lot to handle.
Yeah, and it's amazing how he keeps it in the center of the ring too.
Yeah, he's got a lot of great ring generalship, a lot of control. Um, the last fight that I really wanted to bring up just real quick, I'll probably even do a preview again next week, but I just wanted to get your thoughts. How are you feeling about the rematch between Alexander Usyk and Anthony Joshua?
Wow, that first fight was amazing. Like I hear people be like, "That was so boring." That's boxing, like at its finest, right there. Um, I can't even complain about Joshua's performance either. Like he even buzzed him a couple times. That's a big being heavyweight like that. I give it to Usyk. He took some shots, so that's why I can't really count Joshua all the way out. But to have that confidence to know that you can outskill somebody and it's already happened, Usyk's coming in with a different confidence right here. Even though I knew that he had that confidence, but there's nothing like rematching when you win.
Dude, I just feel like the first fight, that the strategy for Joshua was like, I'm exclusively gonna get outskill him. But in this fight, he has to find some kind of way to bring his physicality to the fight, to bring his whatever 20-pound weight advantage and 3 inches in height. Like he's got to make his physicality in some way like a part of his approach to this fight. I feel like that's the only way. Because if it's skill for skill, Usyk over basically everybody.
Yeah, yeah. If he was sharper, it would be different, but he's not that sharp. Anthony Joshua is not that sharp. He's just a powerful guy, you know. So, and the body's huge. So, yeah, I got Usyk.
I think Usyk just has too many things that he can go to. And like you said before, Joshua hit him with some shit that first fight, bro, and it didn't really seem to phase him. I actually remember watching that fight and thinking that Joshua like won the middle rounds. You know, like six, maybe like 6 through 9. It felt like, all right, Usyk's gonna have to have an answer down the stretch here, and he did, bro. Like he's more mobile, he's faster, he's just a different threat than all of these other
Conditioning,
heavyweights.
Dakota.
Yeah.
Conditioning. You seen him at the 12th round, how he didn't even go in the middle. He was in the corner. He was dead. It's like, what are you gonna do? The referees are looking like look like the winner.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And the first thing if I'm in Joshua's camp, well, okay, so here's another thing I'd love to know your thoughts on. Do you think that Robert Garcia can have any kind of influence over how Anthony Joshua fights?
different styles, bro. It's completely different styles. You had a guy that's learned. Joshua's more like on the UK side, right? So the UK style, that's more like the UK styles is wide, right? The jab is all the way out here. Okay, they're kind of like fencing all the time, right? And then Joshua's his strong suit is not necessarily fighting like that either. You know, he picks a shot and rolls with it. If it lands, he smells blood, he goes for it. When this guy doesn't smell blood, have you ever seen Anthony Joshua outbox anybody?
The only time I think
And
he,
don't say Andy Louise either.
well, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, don't say that. I thought that was running.
You know what? I think he outboxed Povetkin.
Okay.
I thought he outboxed Povetkin and he got the stoppage eventually. But, even in trying to box Povetkin, I know he got hurt in that fight,
Yeah.
but some of that with AJ, man, and you got to give it to him. He's fought the most contenders out of anybody at heavyweight. Like
Yeah, he has a great resume.
if you look
Um,
at the top 10 right now, he's fought the most guys.
yeah. The thing about with Joshua, bro, he just hasn't been the same since the Andy Louise fight. You know, just the demeanor has completely changed. You know, and you coming in, Usyk came in as a cruiserweight, moving up. You know, that I understand the guy can box, but we got to show that you're a heavyweight. You have to show that you could take a heavyweight punch. He's really not a heavyweight. He's a cruiserweight. Maybe he's a heavyweight too. You never know, because he just collected the undisputed at cruiserweight. Doesn't mean he's not a real heavyweight. He could possibly be like Holyfield. But I don't know, man. I just like I'm with you on that. Don't try to box the guy, but do you have the chin? Do you?
Well, and I just remember like when Usyk fought Chisora, there was rounds where Chisora was able to just kind of get physical with him and push him around and hit him in the body, and he won some rounds that way. It would be nice to see Joshua try to do like a more skillful version of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's definitely gonna have to bite down and fight for this fight. There's just sometimes you just gotta bite down on your mouthpiece and really just push. You have to understand that hey, we're in a fight and I'm the bigger man, and just take it from there. The good thing about the Robert Garcia people, I mean, are they gonna be in his corner?
Yeah, bro.
Well,
That's his new team.
well, that's how they train. So, I mean,
I think it
I,
might be good for him to get out of like a heavyweight camp. It might be good for him to work with some guys that just have a different eye, like a different skill set that he can learn from a little bit.
yeah, I definitely I agree. Um, Maybe working with like Baby Miller, somebody like that. Just switch it. Yeah, he definitely gonna need some great Robert Garcia. I think he has. Yeah, I don't know who they have for a good match. I mean, we don't know. We don't know who's in that gym.
They have the one dude, Morales. They got the 6'9" Mexican guy.
Yeah, but that's not a matchup. Like that's like if you're gonna get ready for Fury, you know.
They probably have to go to other gyms to get that sparring, but I think it might be good because it seems like AJ's a little tight with letting his hands go since the Ruiz fight. Like you said, maybe having a more offensive minded coach that's kind of edging him on to push the pace. Maybe that's what he needs right now.
I mean, like maybe he sat down in the drawing board, talked to his coaches, and said, you know, we need to cut the ring. We need to be the bigger man. We need to fight like this. And maybe he took the decision and said, well, you guys don't train like this. So I'm going to move on and do a different type of training camp and see how it goes. That's kind of what I see.
And it's a big risk to take. You got to wonder how that's going to play out in like what you could say is probably the biggest fight of his career. This is like a legacy defining moment. Are you going to lose to Usyk twice, or are you going to be the guy that could come back and beat a legend?
What's good about Joshua is that he's still going to be in the game. You know, he's at a good age too. He's at a good age, and I could see him being in the game even with like 3, 4, 5 losses. Just the popularity alone. He's the only one that's really making his own money like that out there.
And again, like Taylor and Canelo, like we were saying, he's one of those guys that's actually getting in there with the best guys available as much as
Gotta
he
respect
possibly
it.
can. More
Yeah,
guys would have losses if they took the kind of risks that AJ was taking.
yes, yes. I completely agree, man.
Coach, before we wrap this up, I just want to briefly mention my guy, Harry Gigliotti. He's got a big fight coming up against Tiger Johnson. I know that you work with Harry a little bit. What are you looking for in this fight?
I'm looking for Harry to box. I'm looking for Harry to give it his all. He's been talking about this for a while. I've talked to both fighters. They both come in, and I'm expecting him to just show people that he can box and he can hang in there with the best of them.
I think that he's going to be a nice surprise. You know what I'm saying? People are not really going to know who he is coming in. Obviously, on a marketing level, they're going to make Tiger the star of the night. But I don't think people really know what they're in for here, man. I think people don't know. Like Harry's got fast hands. Harry's explosive. He's got dog in him. And I think he's going to show that in this fight.
Yeah. Harry just called me today for some sparring for some guy, Kyrie Todd. He's one of the guys I work with. He's a 54-pounder, and he's a real good fighter. He only got one loss against Adrian Sosa. Besides that, this guy's a great fighter, and Harry just wants the greatest work possible. He even asked me, he's like, hey, see if I can get in there with Rashidi Ellis. I was like, you sure you want that?
But of course he does, bro, because he's a real fighter. He wants it.
Yeah.
Harry's one of those guys that'll take the risks, man.
Yeah, man. He got a pair of balls on him.
Another one of my guys I got to bring up because it's part of how you and I got introduced. My man Gabe Morales. I know he was supposed to fight this past weekend, and the card got canceled. You know, anytime I've seen Gabe spar, he's got a nice set of skills that he can go to. But a lot of his fights, basically all of his fights, have been quick knockouts. Like, what do you think are some of the things that Gabe is going to get to show when he's in with a tougher opponent?
Just like things that you've seen in the sparring, he has skill that he hasn't been able to perform. He hasn't shown anybody what he really want to do. Right now, it's just racking up the KOs, step up fights you'll probably see in the next couple of fights. Right? They've been getting calls. They've been getting calls, and it's funny is because I talked to his father today, and it's like you got some top ranks calling them and putting them in with like guys that are undefeated, 16-0 with probably 80 amateur fights. Like Gabi only has like 10 amateur fights. You know what I'm saying? Like the kid's fresh. He's learning on the job. And it's good to see that though. It's like a Mayweather and Canelo. You're trying to grab them when they're young. You're trying to grab them when they're fresh, you know? And I think that's what they're kind of going through right now. They know that the kid can give you a good performance, but it's just a timing thing, you know?
Do you think he's getting close to the point of being ready for that, or you think he just needs like maybe another year, 2 years to get some of these development fights and just get some rounds in?
I think he's ready. I just think that the people around him just really want to make sure that, you know, they take good care of him on the way up. You know, but he only has 4 fights, you know, so.
And to be honest, man, him and Luke on that last card, they were the standouts. Him and Luke Yamasheli, they were the
Yeah,
best
Luke.
on the card.
Yeah, Luke just finished. He got another KO in his last fight on Saturday. Did very well. Yeah, they have some good stuff going on over there in the Lawrence Lawtown Boxing. Lawtown Boxing is doing their thing. We work with them. They're like brothers. They're like family.
Who are some of the other young guys from your area in Lowell and the surrounding Massachusetts area? Who are some of the guys that you're excited about?
I mean, have you ever heard of Jermaine Ortiz from Top Rank?
That's the guy that beat Jamel, right?
Yeah, man, he's good stuff right there. Dominican out of Worcester, real good kid. There's another guy, Brett Verrera, Popeye. He's gonna fight. He's gonna fight Baju Jack. That's like in a couple weeks. I got these guys on Thursday for an interview, just talking all about that.
Richard Rivera.
Yeah, man.
Okay. I haven't gotten to watch him.
He's good. He's good. You're gonna like him. And he got some nice fights already. So he, like he's danced with a couple great guys too. So you'll like him.
I'm looking forward to that fight, man. That's a good
And
match.
that's like another Gigliotti and Tiger Johnson thing right there. Same similar thing, you know, coming in there as the underdog, but you guys got to see these guys, man.
100%. I think these are just some of the names that people are not as familiar with, and they're finally just getting their opportunities, you know?
Have you heard of also Francis Hogan?
Nah, I haven't.
Yeah, he's up in Massachusetts, in Weymouth, Massachusetts. He's a 12-0. He's fighting in the Mohegan Suns. He's the guy that he tends to, on the weigh-ins, he tends to wear like Speedos and shit. And like crazy shit. Like he has like a crazy personality. He's awesome.
That's awesome.
I'll get him on your show for sure.
I'd love to talk to him, man. Any of the guys coming up around there. Coach, is there anybody that you want to shout out? Anything you want to shout out before we wrap this one up?
Well, I want to shout out to Mill City Boxing, my boxing program, all the kids that are in there as the amateur boxers, all the guys, all my families, all my friends. I want to give a big shout out to you guys. The Slip and Weave podcast, Dakota. I mean, thank you for having me on. And that's it, guys. Appreciate it.
Coach Torres, I appreciate you, bro. Glad we can make this happen today.
You already know, man.
All
Take
right,
it easy and keep grinding.
All right.
All right, boss.
Peace.